Hello and welcome. This is Notibot ENG. Tonight, we bring you a recap of the latest global news, with tensions escalating in the Middle East. The Iran war is taking a surprisingly low-key turn, with music and barbecues dominating the streets of Tehran. Meanwhile, oil prices are skyrocketing, and the fate of the Strait of Hormuz hangs in the balance. We'll explore the implications of the conflict on global security, U.S. strength, and the future of the region. Stay with us as we break down the latest developments. In a stark contrast to U.S. President Trump's warnings of war, daily life in Iran continues with a surprising air of normalcy and defiance. Iran has defied U.S. President Donald Trump's threats, with families gathering in Tehran to celebrate the final day of the Persian New Year holidays, despite a month-long war between the country and Iran's enemies. On Thursday, hundreds of families sat in a park, picnicking and enjoying the scenic views of the Alborz Mountains, a stark contrast to the ongoing attacks on the city. President Trump had vowed to strike Iran hard for another 2 or 3 weeks, but the Iranian people seemed unfazed by the U.S. leaders' Stone Age threats. "We must keep this ritual alive under all circumstances, even in the current situation and despite the distress we feel," said Roya Abhari, a 39-year-old Iranian woman. The Persian New Year, or Nowruz, is a significant holiday in Iran, and tradition calls for spending the day outdoors to ward off bad luck. The conflict in Iran began on February 28th, when the U.S. launched a military operation alongside Israel, aimed at taking out Iranian missile sites. Since then, the country has been under regular attack, with powerful blasts shaking the Iranian capital on Thursday. Despite the ongoing violence, many Iranians chose to celebrate the holiday, showing resilience and determination in the face of adversity. The conflict in Iran matters not just for the Iranian people, but also for the global community, as it has raised concerns about the stability of the Middle East and the impact on international relations. As tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate, the global energy market is feeling the strain, with oil prices surging to new heights. The global oil market is reeling from the latest escalation of tensions between the U.S. and Iran, with fuel prices surging to record highs. The conflict, which began in January, has disrupted the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping lane that accounts for 20% of the world's oil supply. The U.S. and Israel launched a series of airstrikes against Iranian military targets in response to Iran's ballistic missile tests, which the U.S. sees as a threat to regional security. Iran retaliated with missile strikes against U.S. military bases in Iraq, which the U.S. responded to with further airstrikes. As a result of the conflict, oil prices have jumped by over 10% in the past week, with Brent crude oil reaching a 7-year high of $71.50 per barrel. The price spike is rippling across the globe, with many countries struggling to keep up with the rising costs of fuel. In Nigeria, for example, the price of petrol has increased by over 20% in the past month, with the government struggling to keep up with the rising costs. In Vietnam and India, workers are facing soaring costs, longer hours, and lost jobs amid a deepening global energy crisis. As the conflict continues to drag on, there are fears that the global economy could take a hit. The International Monetary Fund has warned that a prolonged conflict could lead to a recession, with global growth expected to slow to 3.3% this year. The full extent of the impact is yet to be seen, but one thing is clear: the global energy crisis is far from over. As tensions escalate with Iran, the world's most critical oil choke point is testing the resolve of NATO's collective defense, sparking a major question. A recent crisis has put the future of NATO on the line. The United States, under the leadership of Donald Trump, has called on its NATO allies to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, a vital waterway that connects the Middle East to the world's oceans. Trump's request came in response to Iran's seizure of a British oil tanker in the strait, which is also used by the U.S. Navy. Despite the urgent nature of the request, the U.S. received a lukewarm response from its allies, with many choosing not to intervene. Trump's reaction was swift and severe, with him threatening to withdraw the U.S. from the alliance. This move has sent shockwaves throughout the global community, as NATO has been a cornerstone of U.S. national security and stability for decades. The tension between the U.S. and its NATO allies is nothing new. Since Trump took office in 2016, the relationship has deteriorated significantly. Trump has repeatedly criticized his European allies for not spending enough on defense, with some calling this a thinly veiled attempt to shift the burden onto others. The situation has escalated in recent months, with Trump publicly questioning the value of the alliance and even suggesting that NATO was obsolete. This rhetoric has been met with skepticism from many European leaders, who see it as an attempt to bully them into increased defense spending. The crisis over the Strait of Hormuz has raised questions about the future of NATO and whether the alliance can withstand the pressure from the U.S. As tensions escalate, the United States is being forced to confront its own military capabilities in the face of a resurgent Iran, a rising superpower. The U.S.-led coalition's military operation in Venezuela has sparked concerns about the country's escalating involvement in the region. The operation, which took place on January 23rd, resulted in the successful rescue of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's key ally, Juan Guaidó. The operation was carried out by U.S. commandos, who successfully freed Guaidó from captivity without sustaining any casualties. The move was widely seen as a significant escalation of the U.S.'s involvement in the Venezuela crisis, which has been ongoing since 2019. The operation has also drawn criticism from some quarters, with Maduro labeling it a heinous act that has proven the true face of imperialism. The situation has taken a turn for the worse in recent days, with U.S. President Donald Trump launching a televised address in which he urged impacted nations to purchase more oil from the U.S. and warned those concerned about energy security in the Strait of Hormuz to go in themselves and sort it out. The address was met with widespread criticism, with many accusing Trump of displaying a tough-on-tougher attitude that could escalate the situation further. The operation has significant implications for regional stability, with the U.S.'s increasing involvement in Venezuela seen as a challenge to Russia's growing influence in the region. The crisis has also sparked concerns about the potential for further military action and the impact on the global energy market. As the situation continues to unfold, analysts are calling for caution and restraint from all parties involved. According to reports from the White House, a key decision by the U.S. is being shaped by Iran's response to the potential reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping lane, may reopen under certain conditions, according to Emily Harding, Vice President of the Defense and Security Department at SISE. In a recent conversation with Joe Matthew on Bloomberg's Balance of Power, Harding emphasized that restoring shipping through the strait hinges on whether Iran takes steps back. Harding pointed to the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and Iran, particularly in the wake of the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January. She noted that Iran's behavior has been increasingly aggressive, including the seizure of a British tanker in July. The U.S. and Iran have also been engaged in a naval buildup in the region. The reopening of the Strait of Hormuz would be a significant development, as it would ease tensions and stabilize the global energy market. However, Harding warned that the risks to regional energy infrastructure are significant. She mentioned the potential for sabotage and cyber attacks, which could disrupt oil supplies and lead to economic instability. Harding also discussed the U.S. strategy for monitoring Iran's nuclear program. The U.S. has been working to strengthen its international partnerships to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities. However, the road ahead is uncertain, and the U.S. will need to balance its efforts with the need for diplomacy and cooperation. The Strait of Hormuz is a crucial waterway through which 1/3 of the world's oil passes. Any disruption to shipping through the strait could have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. As Harding noted, the situation remains fluid, and the U.S. will need to carefully consider its actions to ensure stability and security in the region. A shocking claim from Tehran has sparked international concern, with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps alleging a targeted attack on a major cloud computing facility. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has claimed responsibility for an attack on Amazon's cloud computing facility in Bahrain, citing U.S.-Israeli aggression as a motive. According to the IRGC, Amazon, along with companies like Google and Microsoft, is involved in espionage activities and terrorist operations against Iran. The IRGC warned that further attacks would target companies not already on a list, and said its actions are in retaliation for the U.S. and Israel's joint offensive on February 28, which has killed over 1,340 people, including then Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. The Financial Times reported that the Amazon facility in Bahrain was damaged in the Iranian attack, and that the IRGC threatened attacks on 18 U.S. companies, including Google and Microsoft. Regional tensions have escalated since the U.S. and Israel launched their joint offensive, which has led to a significant escalation in Iran's retaliation with drone and missile strikes targeting Israel, Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military assets. This escalation raises concerns about the potential for miscalculations and unintended consequences in the region. As the conflict continues to unfold, it's essential to understand the motivations and actions of all parties involved. The IRGC's claims and the U.S. and Israeli responses must be carefully examined, and the international community must remain vigilant to prevent further escalation. The attack on Amazon's cloud facility in Bahrain highlights the risks of technological vulnerabilities in the face of regional tensions and aggression. That's all for today's recap. We'll continue to monitor the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on the global economy. Thank you for watching. If you want to stay up to date on the latest news, please subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you the most accurate and timely information, and we'll be back with more in the next 24 hours. Until then, good night.